So, this is an interesting topic to talk about. Let's go and move on to it. Salutations everyone, I'm Niru Bikoshi, and welcome to a new segment on my channel that I don't know will be a running thing or just a rare thing I just thought up in the back of my mind because it could happen again that I remember something from my past that I like to talk about, that I've watched or seen or remembered as a kid that either traumatized me or something that is very saddening to see in a young age as me. So this is something from my childhood that I want to talk about because I brought this up in a conversation with some friends yesterday where they were talking about moths. Well, one person was, maybe two. So what came to my head that out of nowhere was that I was remembering something from my childhood about a moth. And it was something that happened long time ago when I was a kid. So back then, I was raised more from my grandparents a lot as a kid because my mother was busy off doing something else by trying to get a job that will help support me. So I would always hang out at my grandpa's house and just like have a good time and just go nuts because you're like, hey, no rules in your grandfather's house. Basically, you can just stay up all night, you can eat whatever you want or something. But back then, everyone would go somewhere because I either had school or because I couldn't go because it was something they had to do that was business related and there'd be no one in the house to take care of me, so they would just send me off to my grandparents' house and I would just have a good old gay old time there. So back then I used to bring a lot of movies with me that I love to watch, usually watch like twice or maybe more than that, 5 or 6 times, because I don't know, I was a crazy kid that's like, I want to watch it again. But an interesting thing I always did watching animated films was I always go to the second disc, because the second disc I like to call a fun disc. Like, oh, there's extra stuff you can see on these special features on these discs, from like something you get more of out of the movie you just watched. So it was late at night. I was really wide awake. I could not sleep. I was like so energetic, full of energy. I couldn't sleep at all. And I was watching Ice Age. So after I watched the movie, I then went to the special features disc and started watching random stuff on there, yada yada. And then I came across what I usually come across in a lot of animated movies, like mainly from Disney or Pixar, and that's usually animated short films. If you know that Disney and Pixar do these things where they show a short film before the movie you're about to watch, they always like put it in the special features for you to watch. Like if it was any interest of you when you watched this short before the film, when you saw it in the theater. And so there was this short film by Blue Sky in my Ice Age DVD that was made in 1998. I was like, I don't know, 2, 1 maybe at the time, I guess. And so I'd never heard of this short before. And this is like the early stages of CGI animation. Like, this was during the time of like Toy Story and Toy Story and Toy Story 2 basically, because they were made in the 90s. And this was like early animation, like early CGI animation. Like this was before people made it look, I don't know how to describe it, but how it's made today. Like, even though the CGI is not that, I don't know, what's the word? Well, it looks outdated, if I have to put it bluntly. It looks outdated, but still impressive and still interesting to look at, because back then, with that type of CGI animation, because since we were so obsessed with CGI back then, CGI in live action movies were crap. Unless you're Jurassic Park, then you have the best special effects ever that still hold up today. But a lot of movies back then that did a lot of CGI, it wasn't that well perfected yet. I don't think it's good now, because a lot of CGI is kind of shit today. But that's because, like, with Jurassic Park, they did, like, practical effects. Like, they actually had, like, a T-Rex, like, animatronic that size when making that movie, but use CGI when needed. But anyway, let me just get back to this, because it's like I'm going really off track. Bunny is this animated short about this old bunny who lives alone in her house. It's clear that she lives alone because her husband possibly, it's obvious that he passed away. And you can see how sad she is. You can see, like, she's alone, and she's just making this, I think, cake she's making. And I don't know why. I think it's their anniversary, I think, if I remember correctly. And she is, like, doing this because, like, it's helping her being occupied, just distracting her from the fact that she's alone. And then, all of a sudden, this moth, in the middle of the night, just comes around and annoys her. Like, this moth is, like, annoying her, like, completely. Like, this moth is, like, hitting its full body into this light outside, and she gets annoyed by it. And she does a lot of things to get away. She tries to shoo it away, but it still comes back. She turns up the light. It comes inside and, like, goes into and keeps going to other light that's attracted to. And she's just trying to make this cake, and she's getting annoyed by it, that she starts getting angry to the point where the moth flies into, like, the mix of the cake, and she just, like, you know what? I'm gonna make the cake as like this. I'm just gonna, fit of rage, go and, like, stir this moth up into the cake, and then just throw it into the oven, all pissed off. And then you see her, like, crying. Like, it's, like, so sad. Like, she's, like, crying. And after having that fit of rage, after having, like, that moment, like, why did I do this? Was this really necessary of me killing a moth? Because I got mad of it just annoying me because it keeps hitting my fucking light. And I don't know why, when I was a kid, I think as a kid, like, I knew the concept of death. I knew that when people get killed or people die of old age, they are gone. Like, you're never gonna see them again unless there's an afterlife and you know that they're there and you hope to see them in that afterlife, or they're reincarnated or something. And that's when I was, like, really, really thinking hard as a kid, like, Jesus. Like, it started just clicking into my head, like, God, this is sad. Like, seeing this bunny alone in her house, old and frail, and just has nothing else to do in her life because I guess she has no other family to go to help her feel wanted or feel at least a bit of happiness in her life. To the point that watching this again recently, I don't know if I'm right, but as a kid, when I saw the moth, I started thinking that maybe that was her husband, basically, and that's why I was there, because it's her husband, her dead husband, that's come back to see her. And I think it clicked in my head as a kid that it must have been him, because when the light in the stove just started rocking, and then it's like a portal to like a different world, or maybe it's like a gateway to heaven or something, and the moth is there, and she just enters the oven, and the oven closes behind her, and she's just like in this world full of moths, and she starts to grow wings. And I started crying because I just realized she died, basically. And it just broke me. And this was me in the middle of the night in my grandparents' house, and I got so scared, thinking like my grandparents might die one day, and I just started crying. And I just started hugging my grandpa. I just started looking at my grandma, and I just wanted to be with them. And I just got scared that there will be a time that will happen where I'll miss them. Hell, there is like, you even went beyond to that, where like, crap, my mom could die, or a friend could die, or, you know, I could die. And I just got scared of that, like losing a loved one. And that sadly did come true when I was over a few years ago. That did came true, and I got sad about it. My grandmother died, and now I only have my grandfather left, and I'm so scared for the day that happened. And I've been constantly calling him lately due to the virus happening, to make sure if he's okay. And the more I got older and I watched that short again, I just started thinking, did she commit suicide? Like, did she die? Like, did she just kill herself in that oven? Or did she die from that fit of anger after cooking a moth in a cake and she started to have a heart attack? I don't know. Just seeing that picture moving, and it's her and her husband looking at each other and curling up next to each other like a hug, and then they're just like having a moment of like just embracing each other and just feeling the warmth between them, happy that they are together again. It just made me cry. And it was just this sad short. And it's a sad short from a freaking Ice Age DVD. Like, Ice Age, the movie where I thought the sloth was Adam Sandler, but it's actually John Leguizamo from freaking Super Mario Brothers and Spawn. And freaking Ray Romano as a woolly mammoth, and Dennis Leary as a saber-toothed tiger, helping a baby get to his family. And it's just a comedy. Sure, there might be heartfelt moments, but it's mainly just fucking comedy. Like, imagine that you have a comedy, an animated comedy, like, that you bought, and you watched it, and you just laughed at it, and all of a sudden, you saw this short. Like, imagine if that short played in the beginning of this movie, and then you couldn't laugh. Like, you couldn't laugh because you're still thinking about that short. I mean, okay, maybe the comedy will make you forget and just be like, haha, I'm laughing because I'm trying to forget that short made me cry. It's just like when I saw that Pixar short, what was it called? Bow? And it's about a woman who raises a dumpling, and that dumpling becomes older where it doesn't want to hang out with his mother anymore, and then she's like, you cannot go out with this girl, I forbid you, you should stay with me, and then all of a sudden eats the dumpling. And then everyone in the theater just stays silent, and I'm here drunk like, fuck! Like, it is, like, shocking. You just start, like, getting sad, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's just something, it's just like a symbolism of her reliving, her life of remembering, the good times she had with her son, and then realizing her son does not want to be with her and wants to run away with this girl that he likes. An American girl because they're Chinese, I think. And then the son comes back and then hangs out with his mom finally with his girlfriend. And it was a touching short, but very shocking one when it went dark with that dumpling getting eaten after it gained sentience. And then Incredibles 2 happens. But that's basically what I'm feeling. Like, you have a depressing short, and forgetting that the movie that is gonna come after it is a comedy about a sloth, a woolly mammoth, and a saber-toothed tiger, hijinks ensuing with a baby. And that is something you would not expect to be on an Ice Age DVD, is a depressing short about an old bunny missing her husband and then possibly committing suicide by going into an oven with a moth, which moths, I guess, are representing angels, which I'm thinking that's true. Like, I guess they're saying that the moths are basically angels. That's why the bunny grows wings at the end, which is a good way to look at it, but also depressing way also. But still, it kind of is still happy because now she can be with her husband at last. After all those years, she was alone and couldn't do nothing. It's really a depressing short, and even by 1998 standards of CGI animation and it just being outdated, it's still an impressive looking animated short. It's not ugly, it's actually pretty good looking. It makes it unique that this is like a short that you would put in a time capsule and not open until how many years later, and then you see it and you're like, wow, that's what CGI looked back then at the time. Like, and usually you'd be thinking, a little kid would be like, wow, that looks disgusting, and then you as an adult now, after growing up with something like that as a kid, you're like, wow, that's what CGI looked like back then, and we came a long way after that. But it still looks good to you because it's still impressive that they made that back then with the technology they have. Well, with the technology they had back then. Like, it's amazing, honestly. Like, you start to appreciate it, like how people made stuff back then, like how people animated cartoons, how people did all these things without computers or without the technology we have today. Like, not a lot of stuff is hand-drawn today. Now it's just digital, and it's kind of sad. Like, I think I'm with a lot of people on this. Like, I am sick and tired of CGI animated films because that's all that's being played for kids, like, animated films are just CGI now and no longer 2D. Like, I miss the days of 2D animation, I miss the days of hand-drawn animation, and now it's all CGI. And I know I'm dissing on CGI right now after talking about a CGI film, but again, I'm saying this because I'm still impressed with what people had to work with back then to go and show this impressive product of its time. Because they had to put a lot of effort and time to try and make this, and it is still impressive to this day that they did what they with what they worked with, and I like it. It's a sad short, but it was a heartwarming short as well. Watching as a kid, it made me sad, but I enjoyed it away. The short is on YouTube if you want to watch it. I'll leave a link on it in the description below. And this has been stuff I watched. I don't know what I'm going to call this. Things in my childhood. I don't know. But this is going to be a difficult time figuring out what the title of this video would be. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, darlings.
Ow, ow, ow! Ow! Ow!